I don't know what the fuck. Okay, no, this is going to be a great episode. It's not going to be. I don't know. I feel so uncomfortable. Hi, I'm Breandax,
And I'm T.
and we're going to listen to some music.
Have you heard of Big Thief?
Where? No, my bag. No, I have not.
The band Big Thief. So Big Thief is a modern indie folk mega band. Mega not in that they're large, but in that they are very popular and emblematic of the genre.
The other meaning of mega.
There you go. Led by Adrian Lenker as the main vocalist and another prominent member on the guitar, Buck Meek, who's also got a bit of a solo career as well. They are one of my favorite indie folk acts. Just so well put together, great lyricism, just great songwriting in general. And they have an album coming out very soon that I want to kind of prepare us for a little bit. The first time that I kind of got into them properly was from their album in 2022 or 2023. It was called Dragon New Warm Mountain, I Believe in You. Very long name and very long album as well, which is why we're probably not going to start with it. But I heard that and I was just like, okay, these guys are on the map for me. I'm following this band in everything else they do. I wanted to start us off with what some would say is
A masterpiece.
Ugh, it is called Masterpiece. Some people have it as their favorite album, but most people I think agree that it's a good starting point because it was their first full-length album. We're going to be listening to the 2023 remaster in particular. I don't think any of the songs are changed. They're just touched up. Remastered. You haven't heard of them at all, right?
No, I haven't.
This is going to be pretty fresh for you.
Yeah, no.
We're going to get into track one, Little Arrow, and it's a short one, so we'll play it through to the titular track, Masterpiece, in track two as well. That was Little Arrow and Masterpiece, two quite different songs in terms of instrumental and sonic palette.
Little Arrow to me sounded very much like a prologue.
Yeah.
Kind of felt like a prologue to me. It gave, especially, I think the difference in like the production finish that
Yeah.
felt very intentional. With Little Arrow, I loved like the simple use of the guitar and the way that she was singing. It felt like she was like singing a song to herself. It was for no, it wasn't for anyone other than for herself and to herself. And kind of, especially once we started getting into Masterpiece and I'm starting to like put together, like, okay, what are we talking about? Who are the characters here? I don't really understand the words too much, but the feeling from it is kind of like what was reading to me.
Yeah, it was definitely recorded very much intentionally like a demo. Like it wasn't supposed to be recorded. So it's a bit hard to.
Like you're sitting on your back porch, just and there's no one around, so you've pulled out your guitar and you're just like playing for catharsis and looking out at the trees and stuff, you know?
And then by contrast, when we get into Masterpiece, very much like a rock instrumental palette, some powerful vocals. Like Adrian, as we heard from Little Arrow, can get very poetic and delicate, but she can also bring in the energy for a higher energy song.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not so in your face obvious, but, we
Yes. No, I was definitely feeling because I'm like, "Hmm, hmm." Insert the meme where there's, like, all the
the
the the
equations.
equations
Yeah.
forming around my head. I'm like, "Okay, who are we? Where are we? What are we talking about?"
Especially the lines, "You
Mm,
saw the masterpiece, she looks a lot like you," and then there's talk of laying there on a
yeah.
hospital bed, um, old friends, old mothers, dogs, and brothers. We're very much talking about family and just those close to you, as well as kind of the passing of time and like thinking back to times in your life when you were compared to others or when you were around others, letting go of them, just being in different stages.
At the beginning of the song, my read was, I don't know who the 2 characters are yet, and that maybe masterpiece is representing, like, here's a body of work or like a like, if it would literally be like a sculpture, but, like, here's maybe something that I've done, and a lot of my work has been influenced by you, so there's a your resemblance in that work. But later on, those lines that you mentioned, I also sort of latched onto. I'm like, oh no, this does feel like there's a bit of a generate, like there's history or like a generational theme to there, especially in that fourth verse, old friends, old mothers, dogs and brothers, the hospital bed imagery there. Is it a mother and a daughter? Is it a father and a son? Is it siblings to it? Oh, I don't think it's the same generation. It sounds like there's a difference in generation.
Let's see if this topic comes up again throughout the album, as I'm sure it will. Next song is Vegas.
Ooh.
I really like Buck Meek's guitar melody. It's quite unique.
Okay.
Quite a succinct track.
I love that track.
Yeah.
Like from the beginning, like that guitar, it's like, oh, delicious. I think is the only word that comes to mind for that.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to say something, but then I didn't because I'm like, I would just want to keep listening to it and I don't want to talk over it. Like that was delicious. Um, and then when her vocals kicked in and she did that like the melody does that like uptick swoop thing, and the way that she sang it felt so light and it had a bit of a m not whimsy, but yeah, like a light delicateness to it, and just the whole I think that was very reflective of the rhythm throughout the entire track, and to me, it felt very much like I just think back to, like, traditional, like, Irish, Celtic ballads and, like, limericky storytelling, um numbers, like folk numbers, sea shanties. It doesn't sound like, say, a sea shanty, but the way that they like have this rolling rhythm and pattern to it, and they tell story,
Hmm.
and the story just rolls and unfolds in front of you.
Yeah, and that style is very appropriate because here we get
Mm,
basically these lyrics are just giving us a window into a point in time, like a circumstance. We're not hopping between time periods. We're in one scene for the whole thing, and we get so much out of it. Like I get, you know, commentary on like life in transience, like your father, left when you were 13 and either I don't know if it was passed away or just left the family and then didn't come back. And then just thoughts about when we grow up, do we ever go home? Home becomes the highway. So repeating kind of what you've learned.
I think the lyrics and how she has also then sung the lyrics expresses this like a level of familiarity between 2 people that is just so intimate, and when I say intimate, I don't necessarily mean, like, romantic. I just mean close, that it does transcend words perhaps, and where because you're so close to this person, you see them for like what they truly are. You know, I think for the most part, this song could have been about like any two people, regardless of what their relationship actually is. It's not only until the last verse where there's an implication that they are in a romantic relationship. Um, when
You
she says,
recommended I'm a woman to keep and I called you a
well, no,
man.
even before that, I've my first hint was at the beginning of that verse. We ordered movies on a motel screen. Could be any relationship until you needed me warm inside of your mouth. And I'm
Mm.
like, okay, cool. But yeah, that could have been like friends. It could have been siblings. It could like just anyone who's like you know them so well and you've known them for so long. And for me, that's like it was really beautiful to feel that intimacy.
I didn't have too much else on that one. I think it's
It's an earworm for me. I'm like I know it was only like I don't know what how it was like what 2 minutes or something like that.
like two, yeah, two
Two
almost
minutes
2:20.
17, and I'm like, yeah, just hit it on repeat.
Number 4 is Real Love.
Having a bad week, I will always love you. Real love makes you bounce back to any other. Watching it do it, make it bend. Real love is a heart attack. If you feel shaky, maybe I'll makes you bounce back. Grow up so fast.
I really like that song. And I think one of the emblematic parts of it outside of and the messaging is how the guitar and the vocals, more so the guitar, just from an instrumental perspective, kind of is the leader that the other instruments follow in behind. Where you'll sometimes have that, but a lot of the time the drum is like the foundation, the bass is there lockstep with it, and the guitar comes in for fill. But in this one, we start off guitar and vocal, that's it. And then the other instruments kind of swell in and then explode out, and then we get the long passages, and then it's reiterated in the end where we have almost a false finish, and then guitar does its thing for a while, the rest of the instruments come in, and then the song finishes.
I really liked the grit of this song, and I felt like it made it overall quite moving when you know, as I was like listening to the lyrics as well. It's quite an insight perhaps into our protagonist's perception of relationships, right? I mean, the chorus, such like that like rough imagery.
Makes your
Real
heart black.
love makes the lungs black. Real love is a heart attack. And it wasn't like I think a lot of contemporary pop would like it might use words like that, and then it somehow spins around of like, but the heartbreak is beautiful, the pain is what, and I don't know whatever romanticizes it. And it's like no, here this is like again, it's very. I'm getting this trend of like everything feels very down to earth. It feels very like just telling a very honest telling of perceptions on things, on observations of things, without sort of like hyperbole or like like caricature around it. I like that it unfolds. It starts off with some lyrics talking, from one to her lover, and then later like displaying that imagery about like observing. I think it's her parents that we're talking about here and their relationship, and I guess that has really influenced how she now perceives love to be and what the experience of being in love is. And if it really, I guess, became clear that we are talking about parents and the experience of observing them in the one of the later verses, riding in the back seat, watching the spit fly and the hummingbird cry, "Oh mama, oh papa, how much blood is worth the draw," cementing that connection of mother's influence on the singer.
And as a kid, like one of the first forms of love you're exposed to is the love between your parents if you have a traditional household like that. And there's just such an exploration into the flaws of that setup sometimes that children observe and then grow up and incorporate into their worldview because so much of our behavior is learned as well. Like one of the first lyrics, I will always love you, followed by having your face hit, having your lips split by the one who loves you. It's just such a stark, gritty, like ugly, honest exploration into what love is like for some people.
There's two lines in here that I think have been intentionally flipped. Cry like a bird, fly like a baby, which made my brain skip for a second. I was like, wait a second, this is so familiar. I'm like, oh, because it's fly like a bird, cry like a baby normally. And then, which made me pay attention to then the next line even more. Mama got drunk and daddy went crazy. And if we pull on the stereotypes, it's always the father's a drunk and then he doesn't communicate and he just internalizes and bottles up whatever. And then the mother, the woman is always portrayed as like being emotional and irrational and all of that kind of stuff.
To me, it just kind of gives me the sense that like all bets are off in this situation. Like there's no, roles being played by one side or the other. It's all in the mix.
The false start that you mentioned, to me, and when the guitar kicked over, to me, the word that came to mind was chaos. And it was giving me this sense of like things became, the sound literally became really full and like almost crashing on top of each other, the way that the guitar was being played. And it gave a sense of things being chaotic and overwhelming. And I really
Yeah.
liked that.
The guitar
Um,
almost revved like an engine through parts of the song. What do you need when you're on the interstate? A good engine. That's my smooth transition to track number 5. This kind of feels like the Beth's riff, like a guitar riff that you'd hear on a Beth's track.
We let it down, though you cannot see her. You don't know how to tell her she say goodnight. You could go back in time.
oh, and there's the drums.
There's the drums.
She is smiling in her dress. She never stays. Go back in time.
He likes a truck. What can we say?
What a different pace compared to the tracks that we've had so far.
Well, what different paces inside of the
Well,
song
I mean,
too, right?
meta pacing, we'll get to that in a moment, I'm sure. But even just like the air and the energy in this one, I guess, the title being interstate, you think of a road trip, a lot of places, at least in the continent that we live in, a road trip means you're going down a coast somewhere, because that's what most road trips here in Australia are.
Well, in
And
the
so it had
US,
that.
the interstate is road tripping between states as
Yeah,
well,
but
right?
there's a lot of states that don't have coasts in
Yeah,
the States.
sure.
So I'm just like, at least from my lived experience, gives me coastal vibes. And I'm just like, you're cruising down and there's got this salty air blowing through your open windows. Yes, the change of pace, I think is actually really, it's much needed and I guess looking from, say, an album composition perspective, we had two heavier songs. There was a lot of like that grittiness that we're talking about in Real Love. There was some very visceral imagery in there as well. So you kind of need to let your audience breathe a bit. And I very much appreciated this uh, as soon as the song came on.
Yeah, and we got some grit here as well in the guitar, but it wasn't in
Oh,
like a
absolutely. I just
chaotic
like,
way.
yeah, I literally felt my head and my heart go, just take a breath when this song came on.
Yeah.
The
The
actual lyrics though are still telling a lot of like very real stories though.
in this time, it's at a later point in life. The kid's grown up.
Yep.
The parent is now older, and it's that dynamic of the parent coming back and visiting the child who's grown older, but there's a lyric in there. You're in her house, she's smiling in a dress. She's not a woman, you are just a guest.
At first, I actually thought maybe this is now exploring the relationship between the mother and the father that we were looking at from the previous song. And I feel like quite a lot, again, quite a lot of these lyrics could apply. It doesn't really matter about the relationship, it's just describing when there has been, um, I guess, a breakdown in a relationship and when that relationship becomes toxic or traumatic. And that can happen between any regardless of what your relation is. But talking about yeah, growing up, you're just a guest. And then something later as well. And I'm like, okay, no, this feels like it's a parent child type thing. I think why it caught me unaware at first is because I guess the singer is no longer is kind of like story is like kind of narrating. It's not like I singing to you or about you because we're talking about them in second person, third person.
Yeah.
Something that is not first person.
It's
My
not POV anymore.
my,
We're
my
not
brain
in that
can't think of
area.
the words right now. Um yeah, and then yeah, and I love that idea of like going down the interstate being representative of like traveling through life, and at least from a Western perspective, time is we operate with the concept of time being linear. um Poison Freeway takes you down the line wishing that you could go back in time and change things, and then the way that the guitar then represented that was so good. Like there was like modulation in pitch. They literally slowed down in time, and that almost made me feel like you're traveling down, and inside I felt like a bit of a lurch. I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, as we slowed down, and that was really cool.
That guitar riff too is just so tasty. Like for me, I commented it sounds very much like something you'd hear on a The Beths song. It took me back to a band that I like, a Japanese rock band called The Pillows. Very like classic rock. Um, just that very kind of upbeat, uplifting, but still distorted and like fairly even and not chaotic at all guitar riff. It seems like it's been doubled. There's like an octave effect. There's another modulation effect in there. We changed the timing. Just really tasty, really
Mm.
tasty. And just one more thing on the lyrics. The first couple of lines, just after you go through the song and you really understand like what's going on, and you come back to it, just though you let her down, you don't need to carry. What's far from here is not so scary. Just reflecting on how there is absolutely objective trauma. And Adrian, the protagonist, has absolutely gone through it. But also with time, often our relationship with difficult, potentially abusive parents, a lot of the time, does soften. And there's a different context that it's all kind of bathed in after you've taken the time to, grow up, time apart, all of that.
It feels like it's describing that there is a desire for things to be better, but there's been a failure in at least now in this later stage where hopefully a lot of the traumatic and problematic behavior has stopped. But there's a failure in executing on that desire. She needs your hand, though your eyes are blurry, and you don't know how to tell her as you say goodnight. Like, yeah,
We experience that so
it's tragic.
often. Well, we've got another short one after this, Lorraine. So let's play Lorraine into Paul. And Paul is one of the main singles from this album.
When I saw the first time, it seemed like we were two lovers. From there, I let you tie my hands back. Oh, the rain with your soft burning, like we were hummingbirds. So the rain on a Saturday morning.
How beautiful.
Oh, that was horrible. And inside my car, and I drove inside. I'll be your morning bright, good night shadow machine, a killer and a thriller, and the cause of our death. Swallowed all of it as I'll be your morning bright, good night shadow machine.
pair of tracks to have back to back. That the two, named tracks in the album give us quite different perspectives.
I really liked Lorraine. I felt like it gave me similar vibes to the opening track, except here the way that it was being played was almost like no longer to oneself, and it was like more with us and like or to us to listen. And I just loved sort of the that story. I can sort of see it unfolding in my eyes of seeing someone across the room, and they're so enchanting, and then this romance blossoms out of it. I liked how in the lyrics they used very, I want to say, elegant, like references towards um like sex and intimacy, but they were also at the same time like analogies, could be analogies for relationships or vice versa. After hearing about the protagonist's experience with observing the parents' relationship, her perception on what love and what love is apparently meant to be like, this is then sort of contrasting that and saying like, oh, I was able to experience that love could be something different in my relationship with Lorraine.
Mhm. It's interesting that this very whimsical, this very romantic wording and lyricism is so present in the song that's referring to Lorraine, the feminine, from the POV of the opposite, I'm guessing. Um, and then when we transition over to Paul, where we're referring to the masculine again from the point of view of the opposite, not necessarily, female male, but just the other person,
Right.
we get a much messier, much less whimsical, much more real, in the sense that there's more complication in the dynamic musically. Just to get that out of the way, what I really like in Paul is the use of dynamics throughout the entire track. So we have soft delivery, we have gentle instrumentation, again, instruments used sparingly, but then for effect. A swell and a crash of the drums, the bass, the other guitars, all of that where appropriate, and then a pullback. And it just makes it so impactful without needing to go heavy, heavy like we have in some other tracks.
Just on Lorraine, and then like, because I do think it's they work so well together, and it adds a lot more meaning because they are sequentially after each other on the album. Um, I don't know what the line in the chorus, "Oh Lorraine, with your soft burning hands," what that's referring to. I'm like, is soft burning hands? Soft obviously sounds nice. Burning, is this indicating that like as wonderful as this overall this relationship is, that it's still like there's still like an imperfection to it, because no relationship is just like a fairy tale. um Side note, I love how like the way she sings "Ola Rain" on a Saturday morning sounds like the rain, and that was just picturing painting again more of that imagery into what this relationship, the feeling of this relationship was. In Paul, I think the imagery to describe the relationship was then a lot more obvious and leveraged a lot of like typical cliches and stereotypes, especially in the, I think we get a whole laundry list of them in the chorus,
Be a
right?
record player, real tough
Yeah,
cookie.
where it sounded like it was passionate, it was intense. They also did some crazy things together. And the sentiment that I got was that at the end of the day, even though we do these crazy things where sometimes we get into trouble and it's not the best thing for us, I got you, like you and me, we got each other, babe. It's us against the world.
Funnily enough, I got something. So I got all of that. But at the end, what I came away with is not a bedrock. I came away with a reluctance to commit, because we open with, last time I saw Paul, I was horrible and almost let him in.
Mm,
And then throughout, we get some imagery of parting
yeah.
despite whatever we've done. Towards the end, I've been burning for you since the minute I left.
Mm.
So I get the feeling that we've got somebody as the protagonist who has a fear of commitment or a reluctance to commit and is enjoying the spurts of passion,
Uh,
but it doesn't carry through as like a bedrock kind of relationship.
I'm now just making realizations because the last chorus changes the words that they were using previously. And so previously it was like morning, like there was all this imagery about like these cliches about a potential relationship dynamic. And then in the last chorus, it changes to I was your starry eyed lover and the one that you saw. I was your hurricane rider and the woman you'd call. We were just two moonshiners on the cusp of a breath. Maybe the situation is that they were together, they were no longer together. He's come knocking on the door, and she's like, I we're not a thing. We can't be a thing. We're not going to be a thing. But
But
for one, like for old good, what's the saying? For old
old
time's
time's sake.
sake.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting you say that. And then we end on I've been burning for you since the minute I left. So there's like a bit of a cycle that's kind of
Well,
implied
the
as
allure
well.
of, what made it exciting, and
Distance makes the heart grow fonder, I think is another
that is
another
a
cliche.
saying. Yes, I do know that one.
Mm.
Correct. But at the
Um,
end of the day, Lorraine, Paul, we're just human.
Humans in the only state smiling from the beckoning light. See, you can't see me care for your touch like a
this guitar's almost like howling.
Wailing.
love is cold infection, alright. You can't see me, can you see?
We're talking about romantic relationships again. And kind of like, we're just two humans, and you're trying to like reach out to me or engage me in a relationship. It kind of works. And I get that through like the lyrics in the earlier part of the song. The protagonist, who we know from the past tracks, has a lot of like different things surrounding their relationship with love and with romantic relationships, is still like experiencing some of these like internal barriers, facing that, I suppose. And I guess maybe also just like not having a sense of self, perhaps in this context. And that's where I think that the repetition, I can't see me. I can't. That was very Australian. I
Can't see
can't.
me.
I can't see me.
Almost like blinded as if you were, going through some kind of sickness and everything's just kind of wrapped in a haze. Like the comparison to disease to fever, I think just, tells us so much about how complicated, feelings of love, whether they are shrouded in abuse and, harmful dynamics, or even in cases where that isn't the case, it's just such a complex experience for us humans. Also, shout out, I mentioned it, howling guitar, um, very, very indie rock, this one.
I would actually, to me, like howling is so good. I'm like, I think for me, it was like wailing is the word that came
Yeah.
to mind. And just like at the moon or at the universe of just like, I can't see me. I
Yeah.
can't see you.
Often a lead guitar tone, especially where you roll back the tone and it's a lot of lower frequencies, but it's
Mm,
still a lead. It's called sometimes a woman tone. So like the
go on.
voice the voice of like a songstress through a guitar. You get that
Okay.
very like sculpted, powerful female lead singer melody style of sound through a guitar, which not necessarily
I'm
what we got
very
in this
curious
song.
to hear an example of this now. It sounds
It's very
very
prominent in
interesting.
blues.
Okay.
Very prominent in blues music with guitar. Some humans have rings, and velvet sure is a material.
It could be the cut. Is velvet a color? No, I'm thinking of violet.
red velvet is a common
Cake
color.
flavor.
Well, color and
Neural connections. Wild. Like, that was a big jump. The next track is called Velvet Ring.
hello acoustic guitar.
The night was thicker than a smoky fume and lies away. Love is a gentle thing. Yeah. A victim healer with a sharp, sharp blade. And when he knew that she was fooling, yours is thicker than a velvet ring. Yours is wandering.
I'm not sure if that was birds or children at the end.
Or like the inside of someone's mouth. What an interesting track, like on all levels. Immediately we both, noticed the play with tempo.
Yeah, I mean, it's the fastest track that we've had, I think, so far.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked how, with that speed, the lyrics were also delivered at speed. Sometimes I find that when the music has a very fast tempo, the singing then ends up being like halftime in comparison, and that's done for like other reasons. Here we're like one for one. And so it's just like, it was almost like flashing through this couple's life. And it was like scene, 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 scene. Like first this happened, then that happened, and everything was in like sepia for some reason. Eliza waited in her room, and then later, and he is not the only one. Like with the first lyric, like it's literally waiting and slowing down. That makes sense. But for the pair of them, it like highlighting those lines, because those lines and what that character was doing, and there was one for her and one for him, contrast to what was going on in this like rapid flash of scenes. Montage is the word I'm thinking of. It was like a montage of like going through their life where she was the problem. She,
Well, this could also be, I think it's a very complex track. You could view it as a problematic track in terms of her
her
actions,
actions were the problem.
or you
Thank
could
you.
view it
Thank you.
as girl bossing to the extreme. Because I think we're talking about here a couple where the the woman is clearly a sex worker, and the man knows this and is like just trying to process it, and then it just ends up in this like complex back and forth. There's a few lines that really jump out. He loved her like he loved no one. She laughed, held a smoking gun. What's done is done. He's not the only one. And then further on, he knew how she was getting paid. Her water broke, they would have to wait. When he knew that she was falling, he faced the mirror to avoid the thing. So turning away and coping by ignoring or like convincing yourself that it's not the case or whatever.
For me, it wasn't so much like, whether it was like as a profession, being a sex worker, or it was more like I saw like they're in this relationship, and he just wants to like, I don't know, got this certain like idea of like just wanting to follow her, and she's going off and doing, her like as she pleases, whatever that might be. Um, for me, the first verse was insinuating that like she is having relationships with other guys. He didn't know, but she sees that he loves her so much that she's like, well, you're not going to. For me, that's what the smoking gun was.
What's done is done as well. Like there's almost
Yeah,
a bit of a
like it's
confrontation.
correct, and knowing that like he's going to follow her anyway. And then later, yeah, sort of like I don't think there was too much like layers to it of like she is sleeping with other men. Maybe she's getting paid for it, or maybe, it's like they're buying her things for her or whatever. But the overall sense for me wasn't so much about like that as a profession, but rather than like she was cheating on the relationship, and maybe that was more of the dynamic that I was looking at.
It was an
In that
uncomfortable
yeah,
situation.
in that maybe like it wasn't, they hadn't discussed it, and like it was okay. Like, she was again just like going off and doing her thing. And then she got pregnant, and he's like, we'll figure out a way. We'll sell stuff, we'll make the money. I like that yeah, sort of the wading through. It's like, obviously tying to like water breaking with pregnancy, but then also like wading through the challenges ahead. With the wandering at the end, I really liked how the guitar then literally wandered with these elongated notes to the point where it felt a bit not quite drone, but started to get soundscapey, except we had still a very strong acoustic guitar giving melody, I want to say, like arpeggios. And then it did become a soundscape into what was either birds or children, is my best guess.
Or children of birds, who are, I hear, animals.
Chicks? Oh, okay, sorry.
Let's play the last few seconds into the next one and see if that does anything.
Or is it an ultrasound and that's like a tummy gurgle?
Such a vision in the sun, how they only live to run and I need to go.
We're just playing with time signatures so much in this album.
She'll always know me to go. You and I were born in a make.
We've kept it this time.
If there was ever a song that needed good like synergy and cohesion and just like feeling your fellow band members, this is the song.
Lots of staring at each other on the stage.
Can you just imagine like if you tried to annotate this into sheet music, like how would you like
you'd have like paragraphs in there.
no, you just start, it would be like with feeling. Just the whole thing with feeling.
So much feeling.
A lot of feeling, but I do think that it wasn't arbitrary. Firstly, I really like like the pickup and the catch and like that change of pace. It was really cool. And something like, I don't know, you don't really hear very often. But as we went through the song, I started to notice, I think, that the slower ones were on lyrics where we were painting kind of like the singer's ideal of the relationship or hopes for the relationship, and then it would pick up again and the lyrics would be a bit more like in the here and now realistic kind of space.
Almost like when we're dreaming or imagining, we have all the time in the world to craft situations, but when we're in it, time flies.
Yeah, I mean, like life is fast.
Yeah.
Which is actually, I guess now that I say that out loud, kind of maybe explains the pacing of the previous song, because it was very like storytelling or like things that happen in those two people's lives, and it was fast because boom, boom, boom. I think it's commenting that two people could be like born for each other. You know how there's like that trope, like you're my soulmate. We were born to be together. You and I were born with the same design, but then that's immediately contrasted with nothing in the world will make you nothing in the world will make you make your mind up. Nothing in your eyes will tell me where you're blind. So despite all of these things where maybe there's a deep connection between two people, there's a lot more complexity to it.
Yeah. Even if it's not a direct connection, commentary on us being built the same, anatomy, all of that, we're pretty much the same. There's just still so much underneath the surface that can vary, right? And then we just can't know in terms of looking into another person's mind and the way they work.
I find a bit of similarity between one of the characters in this song and the female character in the previous song. At the beginning here, we get the animals are wonderful, such a vision in the sun, how they lay low. I catch my breath, count my money, and off I go. Pew, pew. Like, it's kind of like she hustling, she moving, her life is fast. She's doing what she wants or what she needs to do.
Mm.
She paused for a moment because like, oh, look at the birds. Okay, bye.
Very head in the clouds.
Well, no, if anything, it was like, oh, mindfulness and continue. Yeah, it was kind of like what I made of
What I also got as well is just the instrumentation beyond the time shifts. In this one felt very kind of upbeat and whimsical, and like it almost felt like we were on a journey. It was a bit like almost childlike in
Hmm.
the way that, it felt exploratory and like we're out on an adventure or whatever, which is appropriate for the tone that we've got on this song. And I feel like the two characters in this song, when I listen to this and when I look at the lyrics, they feel like they're kind of on the same level. Whereas in a lot of the other songs in this album, we've been exploring dynamics of imbalance.
Mm.
Here it's like different, but the same level.
Kind of like it's observatory of their differences, but the differences haven't like had a negative impact, or there hasn't been like problematic action behaviors or trauma or anything like that necessarily.
Well, we're getting to the final stretch. So we've only got
Ah,
two
you
tracks
lied
left.
before. You said that Lorraine and Paul were the only two tracks that were named, but
Thus
Randy.
far, perhaps Randy will flip my observation of Lorraine and Paul and introduce a third element that goes against everything I said.
So we've gone from bi representation to polyamory.
Try. Any trisexuals out there? All right, here we go. So your guitar is out of tune.
I only see two or three colors. We plant that sycamore, baby. Their velvet gowns. I wanna take that.
Oh,
Found a horsehair in
so
my
chaotic.
food. Blue jays all in bloom. So could you take me dancing in the pouring rain? Will you say it till the light is gone?
That was a very like touching track.
Oh, I wasn't sure how you were going to finish that sentence for a second because I'm like, I am very moved right now.
And the one was okay, I guess. No, that was like just even detaching the context yourself from the context. Like Adrian's vocal performance on that track was so intimate and so
Tender.
tender, direct, yet
It had this lightness to
sensitive.
it, and this like innocence is not quite the right word, but it's the only word that I can think of right now. The scene that I'm picking up from this is firstly the use of the detuned guitar, and then and it's a very slow tempo, and then as the guitar picked up in speed, the tuning came more into key, with only like a few notes off, and then eventually once the lyrics kicked in, then we were fully in key there. I think was such a great use of like portraying. First, I'm like, is it time? I'm like, no, I don't think we're shifting time. I think we're shifting space. I think, are we either going from real life into a dreamlike state or an imaginary state, or like, in a mental journey? Um, or are we on the inside and that is the outside? And that's what I started to feel more as the lyrics came on, that our protagonist is in a world, they're in a bubble that is detached from the world that mostly everyone else is experiencing, real life, if you like. They would like to be part of that, but it's out of reach for them. And when they go closer to it, everything that would normally like make sense to them, it all then starts to warp. It starts to get muddled and chaotic, and it just seems like it's a whole different planet, you know. And what I gathered by the end with there was a use of a light imagery a few times.
Yeah.
Can you like while my light is on, um, and I gathered that this person is either literally or figuratively, um in a like maybe they're literally in like a psychiatric hospital, or maybe they're just secluded from real life and not being able to engage with the rest of society. or something like that, speaking to Randy, who is a lover, a partner, and just speaking to this person who I also gathered loves them and is there for them, talking about these flashbacks to that beautiful but and very simple imagery of like we were going to plant a tree, a sycamore tree, which I've heard being used before. Again, it's like in a very like pure, peaceful kind of association. That finish of like like they're saying I've gone insane. Can you take me dancing in the pouring rain? Like what a beautiful like image there as well. You don't know me, but you know my name. That was heartbreaking.
When I heard sycamore, I was like, okay, where do you plant a sycamore? On like a homestead, most likely. And if you're doing that with someone else, chances are they're your other half, they're your partner. And then just talking about, being stuck in here or whatever. I got aging person, maybe with dementia, in like a home.
Yeah, keep going.
Because, like, I mean, there are a lot of parallels you can draw to like a psychiatric ward and like deterioration of mind, but it doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily have to be that context. I was put more in the context of like a home, which makes it probably even more kind of touching and heartbreaking because it's a thing that many
Yeah.
of us go through and we see in our lives.
Now that you've mentioned it's potentially like an aging with dementia read, I'm just imagining Randy. Is that actual? Maybe it's because it's his actual name. What's the name of the old man in Up?
Well,
Yeah. Anyway, that's now how I'm picturing Randy. I mean, his wife. I want to say Ellie for some reason.
I was gonna think of a quip for parallels, but I can't right now, so we'll go straight into
No, I'm
the.
still recovering from Randy and Randy's person.
Right. Well, let's see what Parallels has to close out the album for us.
Don't I make you feel alive? But today I think I've always been alone. One hand to keep me warm. Can you teach me to transform? I can't say that I'll miss my human form. One hand to keep me warm. Well, it's all I'm asking. The parallels of sea, the parallels of sea, the parallels of sea, the parallels of sea, parallels of sea, parallels of sea.
I think it's an interesting track to close this album out on because sometimes we expect when we listen to an album that has a story through line to end with like a narrative closure. And you could say, like, if we're following a timeline through people's lives and how we experience love or view love in different points in our life, you could say that the previous track was an ending. But
Mm.
ending on Parallels for me kind of brings us back not to the timeline of young to old, but to the person who is writing this album and writing the lyrics, Adrian Lenker. At least lyrically, I'm pretty sure Adrian was responsible for that side. And her observations with the things that we've explored through the album, ending on I see all the parallels. So she sees how there are so many other ways people have experienced the same things that she has. She's probably listened to other music, seen other stories, read other books, whatever, that have similar but different experiences with what she's tackled. And I think it's an interesting, kind of almost a little bit meta way to wrap the album up.
For me, the album, having just heard Masterpiece by Big Thief, is more like a collection of short stories. Some of the stories we saw characters reappear, and we saw a little bit more to a different perspective or a different element to their story. Most of the stories, I feel like it was just like there was a theme about exploring relationships, and love within that dynamic, whether it was observing relationships, like the child observing parents, or whether it was then their own experience of love. And uh, the short stories, each track was just building like a different perspective through a different scenario that just really spoke to the complexity of relationships and of love. Um, and so, Randy, if we're looking at like, I really do like this old, like reading it as like two people in an old age and one person having dementia. Um, I think it coming as the penultimate track, it is both. It feels like it's towards the end of telling all of these stories because the two people are literally older in their life. The sentiment behind it also was like it was beautiful while also being very like heartbreaking at the same time, which I also think is like a better way to finish to wrap up this collection as opposed to like one of the angry gritty songs, for example. There was some commentary, like a bit of reflection on that collection, and I love that caterpillar on the floor. Can you teach me to transform?
And then
Um,
broken up by that chorus that repeats, "To be
which
inside
is
your arms is
such
all I'm
a
asking."
which like I think you could argue that every single couple or every single protagonist that we had throughout the different stories that we've heard, this is something they would all agree that they would want, right? Which is to feel that, to be enveloped in that love of your partner. The ending, because it repeated so many times, it felt like a mantra. It felt like, it was like something that we were both like beaming out to the universe of everything, and at the same time just like being in it and like pausing to be mind not, yeah, do you know what I mean? um and here like in sort of pointed towards, yeah, the different ways that love and relationships can manifest and come together in different ways.
So yeah, just wrapping that up and having heard your first full length Big Thief album, thoughts on the band?
I like it. I mean, I think there was such a great use of both. I love it when music and how they've written the music and then played through the instruments, the lyrics, and then how they've then like sung and delivered those lyrics and how they're both used together. And it's not just, I'm a singer and here's instrumentation, otherwise it's a cappella and like whatever. There's a dynamic between the two and they both support each other. Sometimes one is driving or like delivering the feeling or the vibe or the messaging, painting a picture. Sometimes it's the other, and the two work together, and it just creates such a very immersive, rich experience. And I really, really enjoy that. And
Mhm.
lastly, I just really like how, I mean, look, I don't know if it's meant to be intentionally by representation, especially now if it's a series of short collections, like it could just be different people. But the overall sense that I got was that like a lot of people are male or female. And there's, and that's what a lot of relationships, are. There's two people in them, etc., etc. But the way that they treated, I think, the gender of the characters in these different tracks was a way that actually their gender doesn't matter. And people can act or behave in a certain way, and it's irrespective of gender. It's just that we had to use pronouns because most people have a gender.
Mhm.
And that's also the way that the audience would probably like receive that information more easily as well.
Even just in my first experience hearing Big Thief, there are a few artists like this where you hear it and you're like, not only do I like the sound of this, but this is
Mm,
something special, and this band is one to watch, and it's one to keep an eye on because you know that future releases are going to have a spin on them that is unique to this band. Like I don't think anyone's coming in and playing music like Big Thief does. All right. Well, that's been Big Thief. I'm excited about the new release coming out soon. If you
Mm.
guys want to hear us look at some, or see us look at some, and listen to some other stuff from Big Thief, let us know. I've heard a lot of stuff, but I haven't probably sat down and listened to every project all the way through.
Yeah,
So
suggestions are great. Love some
absolutely
suggestions.
keep them coming. Otherwise, we will see you as usual on the next thing.